He comes over. He goes, "Yo, my soap dish there." I didn't pay any attention to him. I just rinsed out my cloth, squeezed it out. He goes, gets right in my face, and he starts screaming, "I'm talking to you. Don't you see my soap dish there?" And I go just like this. I slowly look up at him, make eye contact. I said, "I see a soap dish on every sink. What are you going to do about it?" And he starts screaming in my face, using the F-bomb. He's like, "I'm going to smash your face into this mirror." I said, "Well, go right ahead." I said, "But remember, you have no idea what I'm capable of." He never said another word. He left. That was
wow.
it. I was scared to death.
Wow.
Like, you weren't going to win a physical contest, so at that point in time,
Right.
a bluff was your best move.
He could have squashed me so easy. But, yeah.
Kept your cool, man.
Yeah, that was the important thing. And that's the military teaches you that.
Mm-hmm.
Because they will scream in your face and you have to maintain your composure, no reaction, no emotion. And that's exactly what I did. And that diffused the situation.
Right.
You didn't get upset. You didn't yell at him. You just said, "Think about this."
Right.
On a side note, I think that almost the military training would be good training for baby screams. Now that I'm going through this whole thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway.
But the prison system is full of corruption. The corrections officers control the system.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about UCC1 before.
By the way, yeah, we should talk a little bit about that because in previous episodes we've mentioned the birth certificate, the social security number, how you as a human being or corporate person are locked into the system. And if you've explored this facet at all, that's what we're referring to as the Uniform Commercial Code. So we'll let Rollyn continue here.
Any mention of UCC1 in the prison system will eliminate you in a hurry. The system is threatened by that. And I don't have a full understanding of it, but it's a way to make yourself sovereign from the rules and regulations of the U.S. government. Basically, there's a way you can do it. And guys that would check into it or get some kind of information through the mail or whatever, you didn't see them much longer after that. So it was really the ones that wanted to talk about it or get information on it had to be very careful, because if word got out that they were looking into it, they would disappear. They can make anyone disappear in there at any time.
Like into the box, kill them, any of the above?
Yep, any of it.
Wow.
Whatever they want to do, because you hear all the time about someone getting stabbed in prison or someone hanging themselves or whatever it might be.
Hanging.
How do we know what really happened? There's no way anyone can know.
Nobody wants to know.
Who can be there? Inmates and corrections officers. That's it. Nobody gets through unless they let them through.
Well, they should all die anyways. As far as I'm concerned, I mean, dirty criminals.
Oh, right. This is the...
Totally joking.
Right. But that's the mental attitude of people on the outside. A lot of them as well. They're all criminals, and it doesn't matter what happens to them.
Right. If the correctional officer says they did it, well, I mean, he's a correctional officer for a reason, right?
And who's going to be believed in court?
Mm-hmm.
The criminal or the corrections officer?
Right. And I was watching a documentary recently on the New York State prison system, and it was basically from the perspective of the correctional officers. And I mean, when you look at it, it's from the general public's perception. That was what I was looking for. Thank you. you kind of, I mean, it's a rough job. I would say being a correctional officer is got to be rough. I mean, they go in there. They're only allowed to have a club, right? I mean, they don't go in there with a gun. You could get that stolen, and they could shoot the place up. So that you go in there, and they say like their main weapon, aside from the club, is their main weapon is their mind.
Right.
Is keeping cool, like you're talking about,
Yeah.
and knowing how to use your brain at the right time, and just to diffuse a situation. But that being said, these people in this documentary, these correctional officers, talk about all kinds of stuff. I mean, from how degrading it is to having, an inmate's feces thrown at them and landing in their mouth to,
Oh yeah.
Being stabbed by a razor blade to whatever. I mean, it's definitely a rough job. But now let's take that aspect away. You can imagine how hard it is for the correctional officer, but how about the inmates that can't even defend themselves and
Right.
don't have, they don't go home to a family at night. I mean, they're like, what happens, Rollyn, when the lights go out? What happens here?
That's when everything happens. When the lights go out. All I can say is every day is a day of trying to survive. When the lights go out, that's when the stress begins. Because it's bad enough with the lights on, the things that can happen.
Mm-hmm.
But when the lights are out, everything happens then. I've seen guys just laying in their beds and get their throat slit. Somebody put a hit out on them. Promise a guy a box of cupcakes from the commissary if he'll go slit this other guy's throat,
Wow.
You get guys that have no family support, nobody on the outside to send them anything, a package with something. So they're up to anything. Oh, you're going to give me some cupcakes? Yeah. Done deal. Just the simple things like that guys can't normally get. There's the CO part of it. You have dirty COs that bring drugs into the system, and they have deals with some of the inmates that have been in for a while. There's an underground going on there. Yeah, just every day is just a fight to survive. I mean, I've been woken up so many times, the wee hours of the morning, guys fighting, stabbing going on, chairs flying, lockers, everything. It's just...
And they don't bother to figure out who killed the inmate, what inmate did it, or what correctional officer did it. It's just
No, why would
another
it
one
matter?
bites the dust.
Right. Yeah. You just can't imagine that torment all the time, every single day, every
You
night.
don't know when it's your time. You don't know when somebody's after you.
That's right.
And if, like for me, for instance, I'm a very heavy sleeper.
Yeah.
And most people I know aren't very heavy sleepers, but man, I'd be toast.
Yep.
I would sleep through a fire, I think. Like
Yeah.
if there was a fire around me, unless there was like alarms going off or something.
Yeah. So you have to trust in God, just like, I'm going to close my eyes again.
I hear, okay, for instance, I think, what is it going to be like every episode now we brought up Ken Hovind somehow. But
Yeah.
so Ken Hovind's in prison, and we're huge fans of Ken Hovind. And if we ever get a chance to interview him, that will be one of those golden moments for us.
Yes.
But he's been moved all over the place. Now, what's the deal with being moved? Were you moved from different prisons to other prisons, and what are the reasons for that? And
There's different reasons for being moved. Number one is your security level drops. You may start out in a maximum security prison depending on how much time you're given, or type of crime can determine what prison you're starting out in. Okay. Now, everyone starts out in the county jail, which is under maximum security rules. Okay. Nobody has been determined as far as what their security risk is in a county jail. So everybody is under maximum security rules, which means you're locked into a cell. usually by yourself, or if anything else, one other person. There might be a double bunk in a max cell. Okay. Very limited movement in maximum security prisons. No free movement. Every movement is escorted. If you have to go from your cell to the law library, you're going to have an escort with you. When your security level drops, then you're going to be moved from that prison to a medium security prison, which is a dorm setting. Now you've got anywhere from 60 to 90 guys in an open room with little bunks and lockers. But you have more free movement. The movements are controlled by a control room, a control tower that will say 9 o'clock movement. Now you have 5 minutes to get from point A to point B, but you're not escorted. Everybody goes where they have to go. And once they say end of movement, you better be where you're supposed to be, because you don't want to be out anywhere where you're not supposed to be. You go to the box. Okay, but that's free movement, And there's several of those during the day. You can go to the yard, go to the library or the gym or whatever, but you can only go during those little movement periods. Then, as time goes by, your security level could drop again if you haven't had any problems or no altercations. If you haven't been given a ticket, they give a ticket for smoking in places you're not supposed to be smoking, fighting, anything like that you can get a ticket for. You can drop to minimum security, which is Camp Monterey is minimum security. There's no fence around it. It's a shock camp, okay, and that's in the New York State prison system. And they have shock camps, which are like boot camps. Most of your states operate under that same type of system. Okay, but you guys are familiar with New York State. Then you have other minimum security prisons that are not shock camps. They're just no fence around it. You're just housed in a dorm. You have to be in the dorm at certain times for a count. Every prison has a count system. And I think it was like first thing in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, there's a count. You have to get up out of bed and stand up. They come around and count. Then again, after lunch, there's another count. Or just before lunch, whatever. And then again, just before supper. And then again at bedtime. And some of them do another one. It's like a silent count. They don't wake you up or anything. They'll just go around. They have to report in the count. But those are reasons that you'd be moved, is if your security level drops. Another reason you might be moved is a corrections officer comes into a prison and he's given a list of all the inmates. If he knows any of those inmates, they're going to move the inmate. So it might be a new corrections officer, or it may be an old one that transferred from one prison to another. He can come into the prison, but if he knows any of the inmates, chances are they're going to move the inmate. It happened to me once. I was in a prison close to home, and a new corrections officer came to that prison, and he was new, and he knew me. The reason he knew me, him and my son were best friends, and he practically grew up at my house.
Okay.
However, they didn't move me. They didn't move him. They interviewed him and asked him if there would be any problem with this inmate, and he said no. And they interviewed me, and they said, do you see any problems, with this corrections officer? Which is kind of unusual that they would do that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That is weird.
But they did do that, and I said no. But one reason I think that might have happened that way is because the state got into a bind with their computer system.